Okay, I'm going to do a write-up now of Avatar 3. I know it came out a few months ago now, and I know that most of you are above this kind of film, and with some good reason. I know that we look down upon blockbusters, even I have to some extent at times. However, I want to narrow down our reasons for dismissing a film such as this one. I want to make one thing clear before I proceed and explain why I don't feel it is inconsistent to discuss a James Cameron Avatar film on this channel, why I would want to enjoy a film such as this, or why I would even potentially enjoy a film such as this. I like animation. I like animation for its own sake. I like cinema and filmmaking for its own sake. I'm more an admirer of the visual arts than I am of literature and drama, which isn't to say I don't greatly admire that latter, although my appreciation of film is downstream of the great admiration I have for visual arts as opposed to literature, novels, which I've tried to make clear before on this channel, although I know some of the people watching may not quite feel this way. This is fine, we all have our priorities, although I want to make very clear to everyone mine. So with that in mind, I have no problem with a film like Avatar existing and can even see myself enjoying a film such as Avatar. Now, as it happens, I never was a major fanatic over the first Avatar. A pretty mediocre script, some very cool animation, some rather well directed action, and some fairly enticing art design. I found it remarkable how one note and cliched the plot beats of that first Avatar were. I found it really condescending to the audience that Cameron thought they would buy it. But he was right, they did. Audiences like all kinds of crap. Avatar was not much different to plenty of the other crap that they like. Actually, it was probably a little better, to be fair, than Michael Bay's atrocities, Fast and Furious abominations, or whatever Roland Emmerich garbage is released in a given year. So imagine my surprise, my very pleasant surprise, when upon seeing it over a year later, I really enjoyed Avatar 2 The Way of Water as much as I did. Seeing it over a year later from that film's release in 2022, I really enjoyed the Avatar 2 The Way of Water as much as I did and considered it what I really had wanted the first film to be. Now, the disappointing thing is that it was 2022 rather than 2009. And in 2022, even the grandiose visual effects of Avatar, The Way of Water, didn't seem as majestic as they could or should be. I didn't feel Avatar was what it was boasting it was as far as CGI. The first one back in 2009, quite frankly, but maybe because I was so used to video games looking so good at that time, what we might call graphics in a film, live action film context, just couldn't be as impressive, or was only so impressive to me. I know narratively Avatar The Way of Water was really, in many ways, nothing special, but I felt more for it. I liked the characters, I was curious how the story would unfold, and it didn't nail itself to some dumb character arc. It just had Scully and his family hiding out, learning the ways of this water tribe, and then getting to an inevitable confrontation with the military machine. As far as action went, I got way more of a kick out of Avatar 2 than Avatar 1. I thoroughly enjoyed the film, 3 hours flew by, and I was quite keen to see Avatar 3 when it arrived in our world. And now I would like to ask a question of those who really have it in for these particular movies. At what point in cinema history do we not like spectacles anymore? Because I know you like Griffith, I know you like Keaton's The General, I know you like the silent epics. I know you like Griffith. I'm not insinuating anything by that. Intolerance and Way Down East, rather than the more notorious film. I'm not trying to insinuate anything by that. When I think of Griffith, I think of how magnificent Intolerance is, not how questionable and just evil that 1915 film is. But anyway, I know you like Keaton's The General, I know you like the silent epics, I know you like David Lean, I know you like those grand Russian epics, Sergei Bondarchuk adapting Tolstoy's War and Peace, for example. I know some of you even like Star Wars and some of those big 80s fantasy world-building features. But then something happens, like Adam Curtis. But then something happened. And, I don't like spectacles anymore. Too reliant on CGI, too this, too that, bad writing. Because apparently Hollywood blockbusters used to have really good writing. They had Anthony Burgess and Martin Amis and Saul Bellows and Umberto Eco ghostwriting all of those big fantasy epics of the time. We just didn't know it. Which really translates to... I didn't enjoy new movies anymore once the world became less magical and I had to get a job and relationships didn't just fall into my lap and whatever the hell else. That's fine. I can't fault you for feeling that way. Look, maybe one just doesn't like CGI in general. Maybe their love of genre films is so dependent on analog effects. But what about those who decry the waves of CGI in their films but profess to enjoy animated films if they are not too focused on brain-numbing children's entertainment priorities? Is it a combination of disliking these blockbuster spectacles and a distaste for too much animation mixed in with live action photography? I don't know. To me, CGI has always been around, and whilst I identified early on a unique appeal to the films that used analog effects, I still appreciated the prospect of CGI being used in an interesting or effective way in a feature film. There was a difference between The Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers and Star Wars: Attack of the Clones, a difference between the Villeneuve adaptations of Dune and the Russo brothers adaptations of Marvel's Infinity Gauntlet saga. We can acknowledge how much crap is churned out via CGI laziness, but can't we also acknowledge when it is applied in a creative, tasteful, effective manner? And in before people claim that the writing of these Avatar films is just so bad, it's just so bad. Are the Avatar films significantly worse writing than many of the Hollywood blockbusters of the past? Okay, so on to my thoughts on Avatar 3, Fire, and Ash in particular. I felt a little underwhelmed compared with Avatar The Way of Water. Actually, it follows the plot beats of that film fairly closely. I was enjoying the film, I was happy to watch it, although I couldn't help but feel that it wasn't going to impress me the way that the initial sequel had. And I was right. While still many leagues ahead of that first film from 2009, Fire and Ash did not ultimately enthrall me as The Way of Water, to a notable degree, had when I viewed it at the start of 2024 or so. It's fun blockbuster fare. I'd rather watch this than any of the MCU garbage. I did enjoy the Whedon-directed Avengers films, but after that I was out quickly, and the films that came out before 2012, and between Whedon's two features, I didn't like all that much anyway. And I find them fun, Avatar 2 and 3 at least, and I admire Cameron's ambition in trying to change the world, make everyone happy, make life good, by releasing these films upon the public. Let's make it clear, James Cameron is a narcissist. He's just a corporate, uber-rich megalomaniac whose desires for personal expression can't be untangled from a desire to have the public mystified by his tricks. His understanding of spirituality reminds one of the concept of a meditation retreat aimed at and appealing to multi-millionaire CEOs. How spiritual can Cameron be if he can't fathom living a life outside of a multi-story mansion? The man can't comprehend what it might be like to live in a studio apartment, or he doesn't remember what it may have been like. He can't comprehend how anyone can attain spiritual enlightenment in such a circumstance without the existence of his supposedly nourishing films. One wonders if he can process the ascetic monk's aspirations towards spirituality. They don't have many or any materials at all, and have no means or desire to watch Avatar anything. What does Cameron think of them? Cameron thinking these movies have spiritual value is as egotistical as him assuming that he actually feels any. It is a sick joke that he sunk so much money into what was essentially a theme park ride, a big lavish spectacle, all for the sake of gratifying his ego, when he could have enriched the world with the materials which he cannot imagine being remotely spiritual without. He's like a drug addict who claims he can stop tomorrow. Okay, then give away your materials if you're so spiritually enlightened, you self-important, temperamental Canadian. So I think you all do have a reason to look down upon these movies, and perhaps blockbuster spectacles in general, certainly of the waves of CGI variety, what we're mostly referring to here. I mean, I stick up for Zack Snyder's cut of the Justice League, but I like that kind of source material done well. I do enjoy comic books more generally, which is why I would hope to like the Marvel Comics films, for instance, but perhaps ultimately, ironically, why I really don't. I like to a degree Star Wars 7, 8, and Rogue One, but I have a bit of a soft spot for Star Wars, so I just like seeing the art design in a functional, well-directed context, so I mostly liked those. A third of Last Jedi was pretty bad, and no, what they did to Luke Skywalker was fine. He deserved to become an interesting character for once. And as I inferred before, I was very on board with the Dune film adaptations, with some minor reservations, owing to my being a great admirer of the source material, both why I really dig and have some noticeable gripes with those films. Although I can safely say that if they were somehow, in some vacuum, an original IP, I would still immensely admire them, and I think more people would too, simply because of the relative originality that a concept like Dune, I think, would still demonstrate if it were introduced even tomorrow, totally inexplicably having never existed prior. I'm okay with these CGI-riddled blockbusters if they do what they are doing right. I'm not prejudiced against them, but they can suck, and can sometimes suck more frequently than other breeds of feature films. But art films suck sometimes, indie dramas suck sometimes, attempted clever satires suck sometimes, actually most of the time in that case, and all manner of films that one turns their nose up at, blockbusters compared with, suck sometimes. It's like, oh, I prefer these kinds of films to these blockbusters. Okay, but those films aren't always good either. Maybe you've 1/16 of the blockbusters are kind of okay. I don't know. It probably is like about 1/16, isn't it? Damn. But now maybe you're like me with musicals where these CGI blockbusters are concerned though. You just don't like them. They're just not your thing, and of course they're just completely and perfectly fine. I was just trying to make the case why I can appreciate this manner of films and why I can like these sort of films whilst also being a great admirer of Bergman, Goddard, Snow, or Jost, or whoever the bloody hell else. Do I think this stuff is less interesting than that stuff? Yeah, a lot of the time I do. But I still do quite enjoy this kind of stuff from time to time. I liked it. I wanted to like it more, but I did enjoy myself. Films like this really should be more than that. But even The Way of Water didn't transcend spectacle. Nothing spills out of the screen to be residue on your psyche going forward. Not many films are, but given how brilliant Cameron seems to think he is, I would really hope that his absurdly financed projects genuinely are. Am I happy I didn't see it in the cinema? Yes. I can imagine not feeling like it was a waste if someone I knew wanted to see it, but no one said anything, so I didn't feel like going on my own initiative or asking anyone if they wanted to go and see it. I'm keen to see how he tops this one in a prospective Avatar 4, although I won't be impressed if, like Fire and Ash, it really just feels like an overall lesser Way of Water, right down to the plot beats, final military confrontation in the water with the whales attacking, and it was probably just as good, if not slightly lesser, an action scene, but I don't know. I think his idea of ambition is money spent not actually realizing a truly transformative, magical, or inspiring experience. Because spectacles, or ones that follow the typical scripted Hollywood scaffold, are becoming really less and less that by the decade, year, month,